Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the stars drift past the main view screen. His ship was 3 days into a routine patrol mission along the outer colonies when the communication system began to flash with an urgent message. The young officer at the communication station turned toward him with worry written across his face. "Sir, we have an incoming transmission with the highest priority codes," the officer said. "It carries the seal of the Galactic Council." Morrison felt his stomach drop. In his 15 years of service, he had never received a direct message from the Council. Human space was considered a minor part of the galaxy, and the Council rarely bothered with their affairs. He walked over to the communication station and activated the message. The hologram that appeared showed the official seal of the Galactic Council, followed by text in multiple languages. Morrison read the human translation with growing alarm. The message was formal and cold, stating that humanity had been charged with 17 violations of interstellar law. The species was ordered to send a representative to appear before the High Tribunal within 10 standard cycles. If no representative appeared, the Council would take immediate military action against all human colonies. Morrison read through the charges with disbelief. The accusations ranged from unauthorized expansion into restricted space to violations of primitive species protection laws. The most serious charge claimed that humanity had created and deployed artificial intelligence systems that posed a threat to all organic life in the galaxy. Each charge carried penalties that could result in the complete dismantling of human civilization. He immediately sent a message back to Earth Command, then waited for Admiral Lisa Hayes to respond. When her face appeared on the screen 2 hours later, her expression was grim. She had already received copies of the charges and was working with the human government to understand what had triggered this sudden attention from the Council. "Jake, this is bad," Admiral Hayes said. "Our intelligence sources report that 3 Council fleets are already moving toward human space. The Zentari hegemony appears to be leading the charge against us, and they have convinced over 30 other species to support their case." Morrison studied the charges again while talking to the Admiral. The evidence presented seemed overwhelming at first glance, but something felt wrong about it. Many of the incidents mentioned were taken completely out of context. A defensive buildup around a colony under threat from pirates was labeled as aggressive military expansion. A terraforming project that had actually improved conditions for local wildlife was described as ecological warfare. "What do you want me to do, Admiral?" Morrison asked. "Take the Defiant to Nexus Prime and represent humanity before the Council. I know it sounds impossible, but you are the most qualified officer we have for this mission. You understand both military strategy and diplomatic protocol, and you have experience dealing with alien species." Morrison looked around his bridge at the crew members who had served with him for years. Chief Engineer Carl Brooks was a genius who could fix anything and understood alien technology better than most. Dr. Amanda Stone had spent years studying alien cultures and spoke 7 different galactic languages. Lieutenant Ryan Clark had worked in military intelligence before joining the crew and knew how to gather information from unlikely sources. Navigation Officer Beth Turner had plotted courses through every dangerous part of known space and knew the hidden routes that smugglers and traders used to avoid Council patrols. "I will need my crew," Morrison said. "This mission is too important to handle alone." Admiral Hayes nodded. "Take whoever you need. The future of humanity may depend on what happens at that tribunal." After ending the communication with Admiral Hayes, Morrison gathered his senior staff in the briefing room. He explained the situation and showed them the charges against humanity. The room fell silent as each officer realized the magnitude of what they were facing. "The evidence looks bad," Dr. Stone said after reviewing the files. "But much of this appears to be deliberately twisted to make normal human activities look threatening." Lieutenant Clark leaned forward in his chair. "Sir, I have contacts in the intelligence community who might be able to help us understand how these charges were assembled. Something about this whole situation feels like a setup." Chief Brooks shook his head. "The charge about our AI systems is the most serious. The Council has always feared artificial intelligence, but our AIs have prevented more conflicts than they have caused. They help us solve problems and make better decisions. Navigation Officer Turner spoke up. If we are going to Nexus Prime, we should take the hidden routes through Council space. The fewer species that know we are coming, the better our chances of arriving safely. Morrison looked at each of his officers. I want to make this clear to everyone. This mission is dangerous. We are flying into the heart of Council space to defend our entire species against charges that could result in the destruction of every human colony. Anyone who wants to transfer to another ship can do so now with no questions asked. Not one officer moved. They all looked back at him with determination. Then we leave for Nexus Prime immediately, Morrison said. Humanity is counting on us. The used Defiant dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nexus Prime system, and Morrison felt his breath catch in his throat. The massive space station that served as the Council headquarters was surrounded by the largest collection of warships he had ever seen. Hundreds of vessels from dozens of different species formed a defensive perimeter around the station, their hulls gleaming in the light of the system's twin stars. My God, whispered Dr. Stone from her position at the science station. There must be over 400 ships out there. Navigation Officer Turner was already plotting a safe course through the fleet formations. The Centauri battle cruisers alone number about 60 vessels. Those ships carry enough firepower to turn a planet into dust. Morrison studied the tactical display, showing the positions of the various fleets. The Centauri ships held the prime, defensive positions closest to the station, while ships from other species were arranged in supporting formations. It was clear that the Centauri were leading this operation and expected to be in control of whatever happened next. Lieutenant Clark activated the communication system and requested permission to dock at Nexus Prime. The response came back quickly, granting them permission to use Docking Bay 7 on the station's lower levels. Morrison noticed that this was not one of the diplomatic docking bays, normally used for official visits, but rather a cargo bay typically reserved for supply ships. As the Defiant approached the station, Chief Brooks monitored the sensor readings and noticed something unusual. Commander, I am detecting energy signatures that do not match any of the ships in the defensive fleet. The readings are coming from outside the system, but they are too faint to get a clear fix on their location. Morrison filed this information away for later consideration right now. His focus had to be on the upcoming tribunal and the charges against humanity. After docking, Morrison and his crew were met by a group of Council security officers who escorted them through the station's corridors. The alien beings they passed in the hallways looked at the humans with a mixture of curiosity and hostility. Morrison could hear whispered conversations in various alien languages, and while he could not understand most of them, the tone was clearly unfriendly. Dr. Stone had arranged to meet with some of her former colleagues from her days as a student of xenobiology, but when she tried to contact them, most refused to see her. The few who agreed to meet did so in secret, choosing abandoned sections of the station where their conversations would not be overheard. The first meeting was with Dr. Kell, a member of the peaceful Omari species who had worked with Dr. Stone on several research projects. Years earlier, the Omari was nervous and kept looking around as if expecting to be caught. Amanda, I am sorry about what is happening to your species, Dr. Kell said in his soft, musical voice. But you must understand that the evidence against humanity is very strong. The Centauri have presented recordings and documents that seem to prove everything they claim. Dr. Stone leaned forward. But you know humans, Kell. You have worked with us. Do we really seem like a species that would threaten the galaxy? Dr. Kell's large eyes showed sadness. The evidence says otherwise. There are recordings of your AI systems discussing ways to eliminate organic life forms. There are surveillance images of human colonies building weapons that violate treaty restrictions. The Centauri have convinced many species that humanity is expanding too quickly and becoming too powerful. After Dr. Kell left, Dr. Stone met with two other alien scientists, and both told similar stories. The evidence against humanity appeared overwhelming, and most species had already decided that the charges were legitimate. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Clark was conducting his own investigation. Using his intelligence contacts, he met with a smuggler. named Vex, who operated throughout Council space and often carried information along with his cargo. Vex was a member of a reptilian species that preferred to stay neutral in galactic politics. Your species has made powerful enemies, Vex told Clark as they sat in a dark corner of the station's commercial district. The Zentari have been building support against humanity for months. They claim that humans are too aggressive and expand too quickly into space that should belong to older species. Clark studied the alien's scaly face. What do you think about these charges? Vex shrugged. I have dealt with humans many times in my business. You pay well and keep your agreements. But the Zentari have convinced others that you are dangerous. They say your artificial intelligence systems are plotting against all organic life. Have you seen any evidence of this yourself? Clark asked. No, Vex admitted. But the Zentari have recordings and documents. They say these prove that humans cannot be trusted with advanced technology. Back on the Defiant, Chief Brooks continued, monitoring the mysterious energy readings he had detected earlier. The signals were getting stronger, suggesting that whatever was generating them was moving closer to the Nexus system. He ran the readings through the ship's database, trying to find a match with known technology types. Commander, Brooks reported. When Morrison returned to the ship, these energy signatures do not match anything in our records. They are not Council technology, and they are definitely not human. Whatever is out there is using some type of propulsion system that we have never seen before. Morrison studied the sensor data. How many ships are we talking about? That is the problem, sir. The readings suggest a very large number of vessels, but they appear to be using some method to mask their true numbers. It could be dozens, or it could be hundreds. Dr. Stone returned to the ship with disturbing news from her meetings. The evidence against us has been very carefully prepared, she reported, but some of it does not make sense. The recordings of our AI systems discussing threats to organic life sound like they have been edited. The conversations are missing context that would explain what the AIs were really discussing. Lieutenant Clark nodded. My contacts are telling similar stories. The Zentari have been very thorough in building their case, but they may have been too thorough. Some of the evidence appears to have been manufactured specifically for this tribunal. Morrison looked at his crew. So we are facing charges based on false evidence, while some unknown fleet approaches from outside the system. This situation is getting more complicated by the hour. Navigation Officer Turner spoke up from her position at the helm. Sir, I have been monitoring Council communication channels. There are rumors that several species are having second thoughts about supporting the charges against humanity. The evidence may be convincing, but some Council members are uncomfortable with the idea of destroying an entire civilization based on the testimony of a single species. Morrison felt a small spark of hope. If they could find a way to expose the truth about the fabricated evidence, they might be able to turn some of the Council members to their side. But first, they had to survive the upcoming tribunal and find out what was approaching from the darkness outside the system. The Grand Tribunal Chamber was the most impressive room Morrison had ever seen. The vast circular space could hold thousands of beings, with seats arranged in rising tiers that stretched up toward a domed ceiling decorated with symbols from every member species of the Galactic Council. Representatives from over 100 different worlds filled the chamber, their diverse forms creating a sea of colors and shapes that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. High Arbiter Vexhar of the Zentari hegemony sat at the center of the tribunal platform, his tall reptilian form draped in ceremonial robes that marked his authority. His cold yellow eyes fixed on Morrison as the human commander walked to the defendant's platform. In the center of the chamber floor, Morrison was alone, representing not just himself, but his entire species before the assembled might of the galaxy. Commander Jake Morrison of the human species, Vexhar announced, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. You stand accused of 17 violations of interstellar law. How does your species answer these charges? Morrison straightened his shoulders and looked up at the thousands of alien faces staring down at him. High Arbiter, humanity stands ready to defend itself against these accusations. We believe that the evidence presented has been taken out of context and in some cases fabricated entirely. A murmur of anger rippled through the chamber at Morrison's words. Many of the assembled representatives clearly viewed his statement as an insult to the Council's authority. Vexhar raised one clawed hand for silence. The evidence against your species is overwhelming, Commander. We will now present the case against humanity. For the next 2 hours, Morrison listened as prosecutor after prosecutor presented evidence of human crimes. They showed surveillance footage of human colonies that supposedly proved aggressive military buildup. They played recordings of human AI systems that seemed to show artificial intelligences plotting against organic life. They presented testimony from dozens of species, claiming that human expansion had threatened their territories and violated their rights. The case looked damning, but Morrison had spent days studying every piece of evidence with his crew. When his turn came to speak, he approached the presentation podium with confidence. Honorable representatives, Morrison began, I ask you to look more carefully at this evidence. The surveillance footage showing military buildup around our colonies was taken during a period when those same colonies were under attack by pirate forces. The weapons and defenses you see were built to protect innocent families, not to threaten neighboring species. Morrison activated a holographic display showing the full context of the surveillance footage. When viewed with additional information about pirate attacks in the area, the human military preparations looked entirely reasonable. The recordings of our artificial intelligence systems discussing threats to organic life have been edited to remove crucial context, Morrison continued. These AIs were not plotting against living beings. They were discussing how to protect organic life from natural disasters and disease outbreaks. Dr. Stone had worked for days to reconstruct the original AI conversations, and when Morrison played the complete recordings, it became clear that the artificial intelligences had been working to save lives, not destroy them. One by one, Morrison addressed each charge against humanity. The expansion into restricted space had actually been into regions that the Council had designated as open for colonization. The violations of primitive species protection laws were based on interactions with species that had already achieved space travel and requested human assistance. The ecological warfare charges were based on terraforming projects that had actually improved planetary ecosystems. As Morrison presented his defense, he could see doubt beginning to appear on some of the alien faces in the chamber. The evidence that had seemed so convincing when presented by the prosecutors looked very different when viewed in proper context. Lieutenant Clark had prepared the most explosive part of Morrison's defense, using information gathered from his intelligence contacts and data recovered from intercepted communications. Clark had uncovered evidence that the Centauri had been systematically manipulating other species to support their case against humanity. High Arbiter, Morrison said as he activated a new set of displays, I present evidence that the charges against humanity are part of a deliberate campaign of deception orchestrated by the Centauri. Hegemony. The chamber erupted in shocked voices as Morrison showed communications between Centauri agents and representatives from other species. The messages revealed a coordinated effort to fabricate evidence, bribe officials, and threaten species that might support humanity. Vexhar stood up from his seat, his reptilian features twisted with anger. These accusations are outrageous. The evidence Commander Morrison presents is clearly fabricated by human intelligence agencies. But Morrison was not finished. Navigation Officer Turner had discovered the most damaging evidence of all while monitoring deep space communications. Chief Brooks had continued tracking the mysterious energy signatures approaching the system, and what they had found changed everything. High Arbiter, Morrison announced, while this tribunal has been focused on judging humanity, a real threat to galactic civilization has been approaching unnoticed. My ship's sensors have detected a massive fleet of unknown vessels moving toward this system using technology that appears far in advance of anything possessed by Council species. Morrison activated the sensor displays showing the energy readings that Brooks had been tracking. The readings showed hundreds of ships using some form of quantum manipulation to travel faster than any known propulsion system. The same Centauri intelligence networks that have spent months fabricating evidence against humanity have completely failed to detect this approaching threat, Morrison continued. While you have been debating whether to destroy my species, something far more dangerous has been moving toward the heart of Council space. The chamber fell silent as representatives studied the sensor data. The readings were unlike anything in their databases, suggesting technology that was centuries ahead of current galactic science. Dr. Stone stepped forward to address the chamber. Representatives of the Council, humanity's rapid technological development and our artificial intelligence systems are not threats to galactic peace. They may be the only things capable of understanding and defending against whatever is approaching our galaxy. High Arbiter Vexhar attempted to regain control of the situation. These readings could be fabricated, just like the other evidence presented by the humans. We should not allow ourselves to be distracted from the charges at hand. But doubt had taken hold in the chamber. Species representatives were talking among themselves, many pointing at the sensor displays and asking questions about the approaching threat. The careful case that the Centauri had built against humanity was crumbling as the assembled delegates realized they had been manipulated. Morrison seized the moment. I propose that these proceedings be suspended until we can investigate this new threat. Humanity offers our ships and our technology to help defend against whatever is approaching. Judge us not by fabricated evidence, but by our actions in the face of real danger. The chamber exploded into debate as species after species demanded answers. Some called for Morrison's immediate arrest, while others insisted on investigating. The approaching fleet, the unity that the Centauri had built against humanity, was falling apart as the Council faced a threat that none of them understood. High Arbiter Vexhar looked out at the chaos he could no longer control, knowing that his carefully planned tribunal had become something entirely different. In the chaos following Morrison's revelation about the approaching fleet, several species representatives approached him privately with offers of support. The first to break ranks were the Kithra Collective, a species known throughout the galaxy for their skill in building advanced spacecraft. Their representative, a tall humanoid with metallic skin, found Morrison in the station's diplomatic quarters late that evening. Commander Morrison, my people have reviewed the evidence you presented about Centauri deception, the Kithra said in their musical language, translated by Morrison's communication device. We have also analyzed the sensor readings of the approaching fleet. Both pieces of information concern us greatly. Morrison invited the alien into his quarters where they could speak privately. What are your people's conclusions? The evidence of Centauri manipulation matches patterns we have observed in their dealings with other species over the past several years. They have been systematically working to increase their control over Council decisions by eliminating species that might challenge their authority. The Kithra representative activated a small holographic device that showed detailed analysis of the mysterious fleet's energy signatures. More importantly, the approaching vessels appear to use quantum manipulation technology that could destabilize entire star systems. Our best engineers have never seen anything like it. Over the next several days, Morrison found himself at the center of an underground network of species that had grown tired of Centauri dominance in the Council. The scholarly Omari provided crucial intelligence about the approaching threat, revealing that their deep space monitoring stations had been detecting similar energy signatures for months. We reported these readings to the Council Security Committee, Dr. Kell told Morrison during a secret meeting, but the Centauri representatives dismissed our concerns as equipment malfunctions. They said we should focus on more immediate threats to galactic peace. Chief Brooks worked around the clock with alien engineers from multiple species to analyze the quantum signatures of the approaching fleet. What they discovered was terrifying. The alien vessels were not just using advanced propulsion systems, but weapons that could literally unravel the fundamental forces holding matter together. Commander, Brooks reported after 3 days of intensive analysis. These ships do not just destroy their targets. They erase them from existence by breaking down the quantum bonds that hold atoms. Together, no known defensive technology can stop this type of attack. Dr. Stone had been investigating the historical records kept by the oldest Council species, looking for any reference to similar technology. What she found in the ancient archives of the Vethany people was disturbing. The records spoke of an ancient species called the Void Seekers, who had once ruled much of the galaxy, before disappearing into the dark space between star systems. According to these records, the Void Seekers believed that the galaxy had become corrupted by the presence of too many different forms of life. Dr. Stone explained to Morrison and the growing group of allied species representatives they viewed diversity as a weakness and sought to create a perfect galaxy populated only by themselves. Lieutenant Clark had been working with intelligence agents from several species to piece together what the Void Seekers had been doing during their centuries of absence. The picture that emerged was one of careful preparation and patient planning. The ancient species had been building a massive invasion force in the empty space between galaxies, developing weapons specifically designed to eliminate the current galactic civilization. They have been seeding the galaxy with quantum destabilizers. For decades, Clark reported, small devices hidden in asteroid fields and dead star systems that can be activated to create massive gravitational anomalies. When they begin their attack, they will be able to destroy entire systems without firing a shot. Navigation Officer Turner made another crucial discovery while monitoring long-range communications. The Void Seekers had been using quantum tunneling to bypass normal space-time, allowing them to approach the galaxy undetected until they were almost ready to begin their attack. Their fleet numbers in the thousands, Turner reported. They have been approaching through dimensions that our sensors cannot normally detect. Only the quantum wake of their passage creates the energy signatures that Chief Brooks has been tracking as the evidence mounted. Morrison realized that humanity's supposed crimes were exactly the qualities that the galaxy needed to face this threat. The rapid expansion that the Council feared had given humans experience in adapting quickly to new environments. The technological innovation that seemed dangerous had produced artificial intelligence systems capable of understanding problems that organic minds could not process. The military preparations that looked threatening were exactly what would be needed to coordinate a defense against an enemy using unknown weapons. The growing alliance of species began meeting in secret aboard the UES Defiant, using the human ship as a neutral location where they could plan their response without Centauri interference. Representatives from the Kithra Collective, the Omari, the Vethany, and a dozen other species worked together to understand the coming threat. The Void Seekers appear to have been planning this invasion for centuries, Morrison told the assembled group. They have studied our weaknesses and developed weapons specifically designed to exploit them. Traditional Council defenses will be useless against their quantum weapons. Dr. Stone presented her analysis of the enemy's philosophy. The Void Seekers view the current galactic civilization as an abomination because it contains so many different species working together. They see diversity as chaos that must be corrected. Their goal is not conquest, but complete erasure of everything they consider imperfect. Chief Brooks had been working with Kithra engineers to develop potential countermeasures against quantum destabilization weapons. The enemy weapons rely on mathematical constants that only remain stable in empty space. He explained, if we can create localized fields of organized matter and energy, we might be able to force their weapons to collapse. Lieutenant Clark coordinated intelligence gathering from across the galaxy. As traditional Council communication networks began to fail under the strain of the approaching crisis, his network of contacts provided a grim picture of the situation. The Void Seekers were not just invading, they were systematically erasing civilizations from existence. As they advanced toward the galactic core, entire star systems are simply disappearing, Clark reported. No wreckage, no survivors, no trace that they ever existed. The Void Seekers are not just destroying our civilization, they are deleting it from history. As the first Void Seeker scout ships reached the outer rim of the galaxy, Morrison faced a crucial decision. The Defiant could retreat to human space and prepare for a siege, or stay at Nexus Prime and help coordinate the defense of the galactic center. His crew voted unanimously to stay and fight. We came here to defend humanity before the Council, Morrison told his officers, but now we have the chance to defend the entire galaxy. The same qualities that made us seem dangerous to the Council are exactly what we need to face this threat. High Arbiter Vexhar made one final attempt to maintain Zentari control by insisting that the charges against humanity still stood. But his authority crumbled as species after species abandoned the tribunal to defend their homeworlds. The careful political structure that the Zentari had built over centuries was collapsing as the galaxy faced an enemy that made their petty power struggles seem insignificant. Morrison found himself in command of the desperate defense by default, as he was the only leader present with both the authority to coordinate multiple species and the knowledge to face an unknown enemy. The trial of humanity had become something entirely different, a test of whether the galaxy's diverse civilizations could work together to face extinction. The first wave of Void Seeker ships arrived at the galaxy's outer edge, like a plague of darkness consuming the stars. Morrison watched the tactical displays in horror as an entire star system containing 3 inhabited planets simply vanished from existence. One moment the system showed up on sensors as a normal collection of worlds with millions of inhabitants, and the next moment there was nothing but empty space where it had been. "They are not destroying these systems," Chief Brooks reported from his position at the science station. "They are unmaking them at the quantum level. The matter that formed those planets and their star has been converted back into base energy and scattered across space." The panic that spread through the remaining Council forces was immediate and devastating. Ship after ship began breaking formation as captains received orders from their homeworlds to return immediately for defense. The carefully assembled fleet that had been meant to intimidate humanity was dissolving as each species fled to protect their own territory. High Arbiter Vexhar made a final desperate attempt to maintain control by broadcasting from his flagship that the charges against humanity still stood and that all species should focus on that threat instead of the approaching enemy. His words fell on deaf ears as reports came in of entire civilizations being erased from existence. Morrison found himself in command of Nexus Prime's defenses not through any official appointment, but simply because he was the only military leader present who was willing to coordinate a response instead of fleeing. The irony was not lost on him that the species which had been accused of being too dangerous to exist was now the galaxy's only hope for survival. All remaining ships, this is Commander Morrison aboard the UES Defiant. He broadcast on all frequencies. "We are assuming coordination of Nexus Prime's defense. Any vessel willing to fight should take position in the defensive grid we are transmitting now." Less than 50 ships remained from the original fleet of hundreds, representing only a dozen species that had chosen to stay and fight rather than retreat to their homeworlds. The Kithra Collective contributed their most advanced warships, while the Omari provided their sensor technology and the Vethani shared their knowledge of ancient defensive techniques. Chief Brooks worked desperately with the station's engineering teams to integrate human AI systems into Nexus Prime's defensive network. The alien engineers were initially reluctant to allow human artificial intelligence access to their systems, but as reports of the Void Seeker advance continued to arrive, they realized they had no choice. "The AI integration is working better than I hoped," Brooks reported. "The human artificial intelligence systems can process the quantum mathematics involved in the enemy weapons much faster than organic minds. They are already calculating defensive solutions that we could never have developed on our own." Dr. Stone led a combined team of scientists from multiple species in developing countermeasures against the quantum destabilization weapons. Working around the clock, they managed to create the first effective shields against Void Seeker technology by using the principle Brooks had discovered about organized matter fields. The shields work by creating localized zones of quantum stability. Dr. Stone explained to Morrison, "As long as we can maintain organized energy patterns around our ships and stations, the enemy weapons cannot achieve the quantum resonance. They need to unmake our matter." Lieutenant Clark coordinated intelligence gathering as traditional Council communication networks failed under the strain of the crisis. His network of contacts throughout the galaxy provided updates on the Void Seeker advance, and the news was consistently terrible. The ancient enemy was not just invading, They were systematically erasing every trace of the civilizations they encountered. "They are following a specific pattern," Clark reported. "The Void Seekers eliminate the most technologically advanced worlds first, then work their way down to less developed systems. They appear to be trying to prevent any species from developing weapons that might threaten them." Navigation Officer Turner analyzed the enemy fleet movements and made a disturbing discovery. The Void Seekers were not approaching Nexus Prime directly, but were instead moving in a spiral pattern that would allow them to eliminate most of the galaxy's major civilizations before reaching the Council's headquarters. "They want to save us for last," Turner explained. "By the time they reach Nexus Prime, we will be the only remaining center of organized resistance. They intend to make an example of us that will be remembered by any survivors." As the main Void Seeker fleet approached the galactic core, Morrison realized that Nexus Prime's position at the center of Council space made it both the most important target to defend and the best location from which to coordinate any galaxy-wide resistance. The station's massive communication arrays could reach every corner of known space, allowing them to maintain contact with scattered resistance cells. The enemy arrived at the edge of the Nexus system like a swarm of nightmares made real. Their ships defied conventional understanding of physics, existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously and moving through space in ways that made Morrison's eyes hurt to watch. The vessels appeared to be made of some dark material that absorbed light and sensor beams, making it impossible to get accurate counts of their numbers. "Sensor readings indicate over 1,000 enemy ships," Turner reported, though her voice showed uncertainty. "But the readings keep changing as if some of the ships are phasing in and out of our dimension." The Void Seeker weapons were unlike anything in Council experience. Instead of energy beams or projectiles, they fired concentrated packets of quantum disruption that unraveled the target at the molecular level. When they struck a ship's shields, the protective barriers did not absorb the impact, but simply ceased to exist, leaving the vessel defenseless. Morrison watched in horror as 3 Council ships were destroyed in the opening seconds of the battle. The vessels did not explode or break apart. They simply faded from existence as their matter was converted back to base energy. The crews aboard those ships did not even have time to send distress signals before they were erased from reality. "All ships implement the new defensive protocols immediately," Morrison ordered. "Activate the quantum stability fields and maintain tight formation. Do not allow any enemy ship to isolate you from the main group." The modified shields that Dr. Stone's team had developed proved effective against the Void Seeker weapons, but they required enormous amounts of power to maintain. Ship after ship began reporting that their energy reserves were being rapidly depleted by the effort to keep the quantum fields active. Chief Brooks achieved a breakthrough by linking human AI directly to Nexus Prime's massive power generators. For the first time in galactic history, artificial intelligence and quantum physics merged to create a defensive system that could adapt faster than organic minds could comprehend. "The AI systems are learning how to predict enemy attack patterns," Brooks reported with excitement. "They can adjust our shield frequencies in real time to counter each new weapon variation the Void Seekers try." The tide of battle began to shift as the combined fleet learned to work together under Morrison's coordination. Ships from different species that had never fought side by side began operating as a unified force, their diverse technologies complementing each other in ways that surprised even their crews. Dr. Stone's countermeasure research reached a crucial breakthrough when she discovered that the Void Seeker quantum weapons had a fatal weakness. The weapons relied on mathematical constants that only remained stable in the vacuum of empty space. By creating dense fields of organized matter around their targets, the weapons could be forced to collapse on themselves. "We can turn their own weapons against them," Stone announced over the communication system. "If we can coordinate our attacks properly, we can cause their quantum destabilizers to feed back into their own ships." The final battle for Nexus Prime began when 1,000 Void Seeker ships emerged from quantum tunnels around the massive space station. Morrison watched from the command center as the enemy vessels materialized like ghosts, becoming solid, their dark hulls absorbing the light from the system's twin stars and creating shadows in space itself. All defensive positions, prepare to engage. Morrison broadcast to the remaining ships of the combined fleet. Remember, their weapons can only work in empty space. Stay close to the station and maintain your quantum stability fields at maximum power. The Void Seeker ships moved unlike anything Morrison had ever seen in battle. They flowed through space like liquid darkness, shifting between dimensions to avoid incoming fire and appearing behind targets that thought they were safely positioned. Their quantum weapons reached out like invisible fingers of death, unmaking everything they touched. Chief Brooks had successfully linked the human AI systems directly to Nexus Prime's massive power, GRID, creating a defensive network that could process quantum mathematics faster than any organic mind could follow. The artificial intelligences that the Council had feared as a threat to all life were now the only thing standing between galactic civilization and complete extinction. The AI network is adapting to their attack patterns, Brooks reported as he monitored the system readouts. Every time they modify their weapons, our computers calculate a new defensive configuration. We are learning to fight them faster than they can adjust their tactics. Dr. Stone's team had positioned specialized equipment around the station that could create localized fields of organized matter, turning empty space into regions where the Void Seeker weapons could not function properly. As enemy ships moved through these fields, their quantum destabilizers began to malfunction and turn against their own vessels. It is working, Stone announced over the communication system. 3 enemy ships have been destroyed by their own weapons when they tried to fire through our matter fields. We can beat them if we can coordinate our defensive zones properly. Lieutenant Clark led boarding parties onto damaged Void Seeker vessels that had been disabled by their own malfunctioning weapons. What his teams discovered in the alien ships provided crucial intelligence about their ancient enemy. The Void Seekers were not just invaders seeking conquest, but fanatics driven by a twisted philosophy that viewed the current galaxy as an abomination. They believed that the galaxy became corrupted when different species began working together. Clark reported from inside a captured enemy vessel. According to their records, they once ruled this entire region of space, but left because they could not tolerate sharing it with other forms of life. They have spent thousands of years building this invasion fleet to correct what they see as a mistake. The most important discovery came when Navigation Officer Turner found the quantum communication network that connected the entire Void Seeker fleet. The enemy ships were linked through a system that allowed instantaneous communication across any distance, enabling perfect coordination of their attacks. If we can disrupt this network, their fleet will lose coordination, Turner explained to Morrison. Without their quantum communication system, they will not be able to synchronize their attacks or adapt to our defensive measures. Morrison realized that this was humanity's moment to prove their worth to the galaxy. The same artificial intelligence systems that the Council had condemned as dangerous were the only technology capable of hacking into the Void Seeker network. Human creativity and adaptability, channeled through artificial minds, could create the chaos needed to disrupt their enemy's perfect order. All AI systems, prepare for network intrusion, Morrison ordered. We are going to hack directly into their communication system and turn their own coordination against them. The human artificial intelligences launched themselves into the Void Seeker network like digital warriors entering an alien realm. The quantum communication system was designed to be perfect and unchanging, but human AIs thrived on chaos and adaptation. They began introducing random variables and creative solutions that the Void Seeker system could not process. The effect was immediate and devastating. Enemy ships that had been moving in perfect coordination began firing on each other as confused signals flooded their network. Quantum destabilizers that should have targeted the station instead turned on neighboring Void Seeker vessels, creating a chain reaction of destruction throughout their fleet. Their entire formation is collapsing, Turner reported with excitement. The AI intrusion has created so much chaos in their network that they cannot tell friend from enemy. They are destroying themselves. High Arbiter Vex Har, who had been watching the battle from his retreating flagship at the edge of the system, finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. The Centauri hegemony had spent months building a case against humanity, based on fear of their rapid advancement and powerful technology. But those same qualities were now saving the galaxy from extinction. As the last of the Void Seeker ships either fled or destroyed each other, Morrison addressed the scattered survivors of the galactic fleet. Representatives from dozens of species had witnessed humanity saving the civilization that had sought to destroy them. The charges against my species are revealed to be not just false, but fundamentally misguided, Morrison announced. The rapid expansion that seemed threatening allowed us to develop the experience needed to fight an unknown enemy. The technological innovation that appeared dangerous gave us the tools to counter weapons that no one else could understand. The artificial intelligence systems that you feared as threats to organic life have proven to be the guardians of all life in this galaxy. The reformed council that emerged from the crisis was very different from the one that had put humanity on trial. Species that had been manipulated by Centauri propaganda now understood the value of diversity and rapid adaptation. The careful political structure that had kept the galaxy stable for centuries had also made it vulnerable to threats that required creative solutions. Morrison found himself addressing the council not as a defendant, but as a proven defender of galactic civilization. The tribunal that had been meant to judge humanity's crimes became instead a recognition of their crucial role in the galaxy's survival. We proposed the formation of a new defensive alliance, Morrison told the assembled representatives. 1. Based not on the suppression of advancement, but on the encouragement of innovation. The next threat we face may require solutions that none of us can imagine today, and we must be prepared to embrace change rather than fear it. The final scene took place months later, as human ships joined permanent patrol fleets at the galaxy's edge. The UES Defiant led a mixed squadron of vessels from a dozen different species, no longer as probationary members, but as trusted guardians of the civilizations they had once been accused of threatening. Morrison stood on his bridge, looking out at the stars and the ships of his new allies. Chief Brooks worked alongside alien engineers to develop even more advanced defensive systems. Dr. Stone continued her research with scientists from across the galaxy, preparing for threats that might emerge from the darkness between stars. Lieutenant Clark coordinated intelligence networks that now spanned multiple galaxies, watching for signs of other ancient enemies. Navigation Officer Turner plotted courses through regions of space that had never been explored, seeking new worlds and new civilizations to protect Dodd in the ruins of the Void Seeker command ship. Recovered data revealed that other ancient threats still slept in the dark spaces between galaxies, waiting for their turn to test whether the galaxy's newest guardians truly understood what it meant to stand as humanity's last defense against the infinite darkness that surrounded them all.